Howdy, Laoshi Lawrence McElroy here for Water Tiger School of Taijiquan with another in our YouTube series on our channel. Um, so, hi. No reveal on the t-shirt this time. Here it is. Good to go. It's for the Go campaign, which is a great charitable organization. So, if you're interested in good works, they do them. So, Google them. So there's that. Today's video, we'll just get into what it is that we're doing. We're going to finish our focus for warm-up on the 5 loosening exercises of Huang Xingxiang. So that means exercise 5. As you probably know, if you've been paying attention to this series and our use of these warm-ups, we ran into this in reading old issues of Taijiquan Journal. It's now a defunct publication, but they're still available online. Google them as well, Taijiquan Journal. And there was a 2-part series, 13 questions and answers on the Tao of Taijiquan. And in the second part, one of the questions was how should movement be practiced in order that they can be applied correctly or usefully. And Huang Xingxiang started his answer on this by referencing the 5 loosening exercises and the fact that they're based on Tai Chi principles. So if you understand the 5 loosening exercises, you will understand your movement and how to apply it usefully in your Tai Chi play. And then at the end of his answer, he goes back, and if you can't apply your Tai Chi usefully, that means you have failed to understand the 5 loosening exercises. And that was the only reference to the 5 loosening exercises. And we figure the reason for this is that this particular essay was to be published in a book that was for his lineage. So it was sort of an indoor kind of thing. So everybody who would read the book would understand what the 5 loosening exercises were. Anyway, we were intrigued. So we did the research, we found them, we found enough information that we were able to bring the 5 loosening exercises into our lineage. So there you go. That's our warm-up. And then we're going to stay in the lower body and focus on something that we tend maybe to overlook for no other reason than it's the back foot. And as Raul Julia said, playing, I think the character's name was Franco, in a very, very old movie, the original Gumball Rally in the 70s. What's behind me is not important. Well, what's behind us is important. So we're going to spend time focusing on things about our grounding, our rooting, the nail points of the rear foot in our Tai Chi play. And there you go. That's what we're doing. That will be our focus. I'm going to finish this mint. I'll get to it. Now, though our warm-up is the 5th loosening exercise from Huang Xingxiang, we're still going to do a little bounce, a little shake. Remember, with these 5 loosening exercises, movement should be organic, should be through the body, and more or less continuous. Although sometimes that continuity of movement will be very, very subtle. Relax and focus on the sensations of the body, including, but not limited to, allowing for the movement to happen. Listening, which is the word that we use, so sort of feeling, being mindful of the feelings through the body. Alignment, vertical axis, rooting, breathing, grounding, intent, and the various aspects of the movement, such as, joint-to-joint movement, directions of the movement, forward, back, left, right, up, down, etc. And generally also how a small movement can generate a large movement. In this particular exercise, unlike the others, there's not really a rise and sink. There is a forward and back movement. And we have a breath suggestion for that. That's Luna Tunes. Her actual name is Luna. We just add tunes and tick and such because she's a loony. She's also a lunatic. But anyway, so there's that. And this is another set, like our breathing set, taijiquan, taiji Qigong breathing set for Water Tiger School. It's a 10-piece customized ordering of 10 of the exercises from the stationary family of taiji Qigong. But anyway, we always refer to that as complexity wrapped in simplicity. And these exercises are another thing. It may seem like there's not a lot to, there may have seemed like there's not a lot to the first four, may seem like there's not a lot to this fifth one, but there is a lot going on. So there you go. I'm going to go back to my shake. I think I'm suffering from both rented lips and rented brain as we shoot this today, so please bear with me. Now, this is usually described as starting at shoulder width, but you may want to start inside of shoulder width just to make one aspect of it a little bit easier, especially if you've never done this exercise before. As you can see, I have my blue lines, so if you've been with us at all over the last millennia, it seems like, when we started the YouTube channel back in March of 2020 when the world stopped, that this marks my shoulder width. And Water Tiger School defines shoulder width as where the drop of the drop of the, see, rented brain, rented lips. Drop of the and I said it again, drop of the shoulder splits the heel in half. There, I got through it. Drop of the shoulder splits the heel in half. So for this context of this exercise, I'm just going to move a little bit inside of shoulder width just to demonstrate that. And I'll probably talk about the difficult point when we get to it. But I also want to point out that my heels are on the same line. So feet are parallel and my heels are aligned with one another. And as I shift my weight to my left, this is my left, as I shift my weight to my left, I'm going to turn on the left heel to get that foot to around a 45. And then turn unweighted on the right heel. And as soon as that foot is in place and my toes are pointed to that cardinal direction, I'm going to start shifting slowly the weight forward. And if I can, over the time moving forward, I'm going to do that on a big, long exhalation, but you may have to breathe more often. I'm going to be mindful of keeping the hips underneath the torso underneath the shoulders. And then maybe a big, long inhale coming back. As we did a dry run of this earlier, I found myself very challenged with the kipping thing. I kept feeling myself going forward, allowing the glutes to kind of stick backwards. We're about there, and notice my knee is just slightly beyond aligned over my ankle, but if I look down, I can still clearly see my toes. And then back for 2. Much more weight comes into the back foot, the back leg, that grounding and rooting. And then forward for 3. And you want to do this back and forth movement a minimum of 3 times. Again. Now as I fill my left leg this time, when I reach the point where I would bounce forward, I'm going to bring the ball of the foot, toes up off the ground in a comfortable dorsiflex. And I'm going to roll, heel, instep, ball of foot down. And this is why it might be easier to have the feet inside of shoulder width, because I'm going to pick up that foot, bring it in, set the ball of the foot down, then I'm going to ball, instep, heel. And once the foot is grounded, I'm going to pick it up, set it back where it was, heel, instep, ball, toes. I'm going to pick it up again, ball, instep, heel, pick it up again, heel, not going to roll it down this time. I'm going to turn, starting to fill the foot, the right leg, pigeon-toed, ideally getting that foot to the 45, and then an unweighted turn on the left heel, and once that foot is in place, hips square, shoulders square, shoulders over hips, and back. This is the first pair on this side. Arms just hang. But a lot of people who have told us, as we brought this set into the lineage, that they find it very difficult, and then bouncing forward for the second pair, to just let the arms hang, that they find the arms getting tense and the hands getting tense as they do this exercise. And then coming back, second half of the second pair. Slowly, gently, chest sunk back, rounded, crown point of the head held to the heavens, perineum anchored toward the earth. Bouncing forward for the third time. Oops, there we go. It's losing my hip-shoulder alignment there. And back for the third and final time. Once the weight is there, not comfortable, but you know, you can tell it's a dorsiflex. And then down. And picking the foot up, setting the ball of the foot down, ball, instep, heel, picking it up, setting it down, heel, instep, ball, picking it up, ball, instep, heel, picking it up, heel, turning on that heel, left toes forward, right toes forward. And there we go. The fifth of Huang Xingxiang's 5 loosening exercises. So to sort of get into the whole back foot thing, we have to define what Water Tiger School's 4 stance is. Water Tiger's 4 stance, shoulder wide, splitting the heels in half. Again, drop of shoulder, splitting the heels in half. And the back foot, like in Huang Xingxiang's loosening exercise, is around a 45. Now, we use the language around a 45 because some people have difficulty having their foot at the 45. They need to be a little bit shallow, so inside the 45, so toes closer to being closer than a 45 to being forward. Or for some people, a little beyond. Now, for instance, in my left ankle, as you've heard many times since March of 2020, I have a lot of metal in there. A bunch of screws holding things together. One of which broke, by the way, last fall. But they've been in there for a long time, since '93. So, anyway. So some days, usually it's an atmospheric thing, a weather kind of thing. But sometimes it's related to the training that I do. Can't have the foot at the 45. I let that foot and ankle decide where it needs to be. And sometimes I'm playing, I'm like, oh, I'm not at a 45 today. And then just to consciously explore, I will put it at the 45 and then have to calm my foot down because it's really mad at me for doing that. So anyway, around a 45, our forward foot is forward. toes forward. They can also be in a little bit, but you do not want to be in our four stance and have those toes pointed out away from the center line of the body. So pointing the same direction as the center line because our hips are square. So my left hip right to the left side, the right hip right to the right side. Again, hips underneath torso, torso underneath shoulders, chest sunk back rounded. And this is Water Tiger School's four stance. And for us, this is a left four stance. It's a left four stance because that's where we're headed. That's the foot that's forward, that's the foot that we're filling. Other people will refer to this as a right four stance because right is, where we started. Boom. But for us, this is a left four stance. So if we're in a posture in this stance, for instance, parting wild horse's mane, it would be a left parting wild horse's mane. Other people would call it a right. So in this position, the first thing about the back foot is we want that heel pressing down and back. A lot of times we get in our head that, oh, I'm moving forward, so it's all about that forward movement. And if we think that, then the heel will probably become dislodged. We won't really have a root in the back, and it won't take much to pull us forward. Yeah, I sold that. So, but it's easy to see, if we had somebody else here and we were, able to connect, touch one another, I would have them pull on that arm with the heel down and then with the heel up off the ground. But anyway, so the heel is down. That's the first thing. Now, what we run up against is telling people that when you rock, if you're rocking back to do something, like in, say, grass sparrow's tail, where you start forward and ward off and you come back into roll back and then you move forward into press, that on those backward movements, you can let the ball of the foot come up off the ground if you want to, because it helps to open up the movement, and the foot kind of wants to do that. The ball of the foot wants to come up off the ground. So people normally throw that back at us when we get to the rear foot and we say, but that back heel needs to be down and back. And somebody will inevitably say, they'll observe, hey, but my heel wants to come up off the ground. If I can let the ball of the foot come up off the ground because it wants to come up off the ground, why can't I let the heel come up off the ground because it wants to come up off the ground? If it wants to come up off the ground, it's because you don't have the proper intent in the foot. It's as simple as that. I'm going to get another little drink here. Because as we are turning forward, part of the turning forward is driving intent down and back. Because again, if it's not, you're double weighted in moving forward. Everything's moving forward. I want to, as I'm moving forward, I want there to be something moving backward. And that will ground me and keep me rooted. So that back heel should not follow in moving forward. And another point about that heel being grounded is also in finishing postures. Let's go ahead and get out of that stance and shake it, and we'll talk about what I mean in our right four stance. So again, I'm going to turn that right foot out, ran a brain, ran the lips, left foot out to the 45. I'm going to step the right foot forward. And again, square off the hips. Now, sometimes we'll finish that posture, whatever that posture is, and then because of what the next movement is, or because we're thinking ahead, we sort of finish the posture, and then the heel, especially if we're going to turn and face the other direction, that you finish the posture, and then the heel comes in. Like if I'm going to start turning in that direction for the next movement, that the heel comes in. And you don't want that. You want to finish the posture and turn, keeping that foot grounded before you step in the other direction. And we'll probably get back to that point. Beyond the heel's not the only thing in that back foot that needs to be grounded. It's not the only nail point, and it has more than one from our perspective. I want to make sure, I'm going to turn sideways here, in my right forestance, that not only is my back heel pressing down and back, but also the outside of the instep. So I can have the back heel down, and it's driving down and back, but there's a gap between the outside of my foot and the mat. So the nail point at my big toe on the ball of the foot is grounded. The outside of the heel is grounded, or the inside of the heel is grounded, but the outside of the heel, the outside of the instep, and the pinky side of the foot are loose. And I want to make sure that that is also driving down and back. So the outside of the instep is just about as important as the heel itself. So I have both a nail point at my big toe, I have a nail point at my little toe, I have at least one nail point on the outside of my instep, though some people might feel more. I actually do. There are probably about 3 there. And then around the heel as well as the center of the heel. And that keeps my back leg grounded. It also helps to extend the leg and press the hip forward. Now, one of the practices, go ahead and shake that out. One of the practices that we have found that can help with that is, can you believe you folks have seen our cats many times since March of 2020? We have 3 of them. I have a cat allergy. So, anyway, and it's pretty pronounced today. But anyway, is yoga, and especially Warrior One. Because Warrior One is a narrower stance for an asana. Some people have the feet wider apart by some, like around hip width, or maybe, well, no, probably hip width. But a lot of people have the heels even with one another, much like we did in the Huang Xingxiang exercise. Regardless, it's a very long, extended position. And ideally, this one's tough for me because of the vertebrae I have in my lower back that are fused together. But squaring off the hips in this position and the shoulders, and of course, having the arms up and straight, and really feeling that down and back on that outside of that instep. It's just a good way to sort of help develop that sensation, that awareness, that mindfulness of the outside of that rear foot. So heel, number 1, instep, number 2, and the third aspect here that I want to address is that idea of, well, the posture's done, now the heel can do whatever it wants to. Yeah. Right? Because you finish the posture. Again, let's say I'm doing grass sparrow's tail to the left and I need to go to the right in the 24. And of course, it doesn't happen in the long form. Or our first form in Water Tiger School in the basic program is grasp sparrow's tail to the 4 cardinal directions. So a lot of redundancy there, a lot of redundancy there, a lot of redundancy there, got stuck in a loop. They'll finish push in the 4 postures, and you can actually see that bounce, but then as they start to turn, the heel comes up off the ground, and you really want to keep that heel grounded as you move into the next movement, so the heel doesn't follow. That also tends to happen a lot. People will get it down and feel it and be connected to it in the open hand forms, but when they start a weapons form, then all of a sudden that heel starts to follow. And you just want to make sure boom, and it's not boom and then turning, boom, and then turning. Now, of course, there are exceptions to every rule. If people have hip issues and that sort of thing, it may be necessary for them to consciously, mindfully release that heel. That's a different situation, and we work with that. And there's a way to do that a little bit more mindfully. But if it's just a mindless sort of losing the connection to the earth, that is not a good thing. You want to be very mindful. Now, in the long form, you go from a grass sparrow's tail, at least in ours, to single whip. So the same thing can sort of happen. So you finish that posture, and as you start to turn, you lose the grounding of that foot, and you want to keep that foot grounded. So that's another aspect of the rear foot. A fourth aspect of the rear foot is how to adjust the rear foot when getting into a posture and your flexibility, that sort of thing, shall we say, disallows a full turn. It's something that we've talked about. There's a video way back there on what we refer to in Water Tiger School as the swimmer's turn, where you do a walking exercise in one direction and you're turning to the next. Or for that matter, again, referring back to grass sparrow's tail or into grass sparrow's tail to the other side, or a grass sparrow's tail into a single whip, or whatever, right? That, you know, the front foot is going to become the back foot. So ideally, perfect world, I'd better do this in a right fore stance because it'll be easier for me because my right foot doesn't have the screws. I'm going to see if I can force this, and you shouldn't force this, right? Again, should be gentle, should be easy. And I can maybe, nope, almost there, get that foot to the 45. I'm a relatively flexible guy. And you just saw me struggle, but now that foot's to the 45. So I don't have to do anything except step into my next fore stance and be the other direction, because that foot is where it needs to be. But generally, that don't happen. So how do I get it there? I have a lot of different choices on adjusting the back foot in a way that keeps me grounded, in a way that keeps me rooted. And our primary ways at Water Tiger School is normally turning and allowing for the turn and not forcing the turn. If you clench the muscles of the leg to attempt to move the toes further, or in this instance, I think it would be farther, then you'll actually work against yourself. You create a drag. If I'm relaxed, literally driving down to that heel the way that I'm supposed to, I can get a little bit more distance on those toes. And now releasing the front foot, or what was the back foot, and stepping to my shoulders, my shoulder wide stance. And as I fill the front foot, I may have to adjust even the front foot because I step in such a way, protecting that knee, that my toes aren't pointed in that direction. So a lot of people will attempt to point the toes in that direction. That can pull the knee in, which is not good because you put shearing pressure on the knee. And because you're creating a lot of tension on the inside of the quad, the abductor is like clenching big time, which is what is pulling the knee. But if I step in a way that my foot is relaxed, then at first I'm placing that foot and getting the front toes in the right spot. And now I have to adjust the back foot. Now, our primary way, keeping the heel grounded and turning the toes to the 45. And that works pretty well for us. Now, perhaps it might work also to turn on the heel and the ball. So I turn on the heel, and then I turn on the ball of the foot to get the foot to the 45. And what that does, if you turn on the ball of the foot, it's going to create a broader stance. So if you find, as I just did, that I wasn't quite at shoulder wide, that little turn on the ball of the foot made up the difference, and I'm now shoulder wide on this side. So you have some choices with that, how to adjust that front foot into the back foot position. Heel, heel works really well. Heel, ball is a possibility. But you notice now I was shoulder wide, now I'm too broad, and it's very hard to square off my hips. You can also do this in a very backward kind of way. So I guess we're still in the backward theme, where I just turn that foot to wherever I can. And then I step with the ball of the foot and with what was the back foot to make it the front, roll into the heel. And now notice as I'm doing that, the heel is the nose of the airplane, not the toes. So I'm not pointing my toes to my next direction. I am pointing my heel the direction of my step, and the ball of the foot becomes the landing gear of the airplane. And I should be stepping in a way that I am shoulder wide. In the next direction. That was bad. There we go. Boom. Turning on the front heel. I'm not quite on either blue line. And boom. So, showing you this way. Excuse me. Let's get a little bit more distance, a little bit more mat space here. Turning that foot, putting the weight in that leg, stepping back and through, ball, heel, turning on the back heel, turning on the front heel. And there I am. So we have ways of playing with that back foot. A lot of times with single whip, you use the ball of the foot after you step, because our single whip stance is inside of our shoulder width and even inside of hip width. We usually refer to it as a comfortable distance, as long as my heels are not in alignment. So I have space, a little space left and right, side to side between the heels. They're not in alignment like they were for Huang Xingxiang's 5th loosening exercise. Definitely not a cross step. Boom. But that comes from, in the 24, for instance, or the long form, from a right grass sparrow's tail. And it might be difficult in this turn, the way that it plays out, to have that necessary opening. So as I put that foot down and move into the front foot, if I turn on the ball of the back foot, now I have that little space that I want from heel to heel, instead of being in alignment. So again, it's an important tool. Do I turn on the heel? Do I turn on the ball of the foot? As long as I am maintaining my root, we have succeeded in being mindful in proper movement and structure and root and intent through the back foot. So you probably thought at the beginning of this, when I said, yeah, we're going to talk about the back foot, there's no way this video is going to go over, maybe 15, 20 minutes tops. Well, yeah, sorry, it did. But there you go. Things with the back foot. Stepping, grounding, rooting, especially keep that heel rooted. Don't let it be soft. Driving down and back, feel that. Turning forward, even pulling that hip forward, even as the hip is coming forward, down and back. Down and back. Also, this foot doesn't go to the outside of the instep either. We could have talked about that, but that would be the front foot. Boom. It will keep you stable, it will keep you solid, it will keep you rooted. And it will maintain proper positioning, proper intent, proper structure through your Tai Chi. So there you go. Again, we're on sort of a 3-week series here. Where about every 3 weeks, we are considering maybe spreading them out. I think I mentioned that at the top, but I may not have. But we'll let you know before we make that decision. So we've got some things in the queue. We still have a lot of animal frolics to get to. We have sort of a cross between physical training and our Tai Chi. Water Tiger School offers a program that we refer to as Tai Chi Martial Aerobics. So a light introduction to that is a possibility. And we have, some other Tai Chi topics as well that are in the queue. So not sure what we'll be doing in 3 weeks, but we should be back. I have a personal holiday coming up, but I think it's 4 weeks away from today during today's shoot, and not 3. So we'll see. So anyway, I hope you found this somewhat entertaining, useful, something that you can incorporate in your own practice. Maybe it's something that you haven't thought about, or at least presented in a way that you haven't considered before. But the back foot is just so important in our structure and play of Tai Chi. So keep in mind, down below in comments, we do preview all of them simply because we found in the early days that YouTube algorithms were flagging everything that they needed to for improper content. In other words, hot links to hot dates, shall we say. So we just preview all of them. As long as it's not flaming, we'll let anything through, positive or negative, with us. We also post a link to this on our Facebook page, Water Tiger School on Facebook. And of course that has a more public forum. But again, if you flame us, you're gonna get deleted and banned from the Facebook page. Constructive criticism, always appreciated. Maybe you'll change our mind. Maybe we'll change yours. Don't know. So thank you again for your time and attention. Take care. Stay safe. It's still quite wet out there. And we'll catch you next time.